Happy Thursday. Welcome to So What, the Marketing Analytics and Insights live show. I am Katie, joined by Chris and John. This week, we are talking about how to get the most out of a conference. Next week, there will be no live stream because the three of us will actually be at a conference, Marketing Profs B2B in Boston. So today, we wanted to take a minute as a lot of people are starting to return to conferences. A lot of people have switched careers and maybe marketing conferences are new to you, or maybe just for whatever reason, this is, your first time attending any kind of a conference. I was only new to conferences a few years ago myself. And so we just wanted to talk about how to get the most out of a conference so that when you go there, they can be overwhelming. There's a lot of people. It can be hard to sort of navigate. So, Chris and John are, old pros at this. They've been doing conferences longer than I've been alive. And then when I came on the scene, just kidding.
We're not that old. We're not that
old. So anyway, I want to ask both of you, what are you looking forward to the most out of next week? It's going to be the first time actually that the three of us have been in the same room together in a couple of years.
Yeah, cheese Danish. I can't get cheese Danish anywhere out here. And so that's the number one thing on my list.
Priorities.
But no, yeah, it's amazing to get back. It's because it's been years. I wasn't able to do inbound. I had tested positive for COVID like 3 weeks ago. So I haven't been on a trade show floor since like 2019, I guess, which is just insane because my background, I worked at an events company years ago. I would do 30 or 40 events a year. So yeah, for me to have gone this long without being, having a horrible lunch and be cattle called around for 4 days, it's just unheard of.
What about you, Chris?
Yeah, so for getting value out of conferences, the one thing that one of my martial arts.
Let me go back for a second. What are you looking forward to the most for next week? And then we can get into the other.
What am I looking forward to the most for next week for the Marketing Profs conference? Listening to what other people's questions are, because I find that as a content creator, as a marketer, as a marketer marketing to marketers, I don't always have the best sense of what's on people's minds. So being able to just sit and listen to people, listen to their questions, listen to their reactions, lunch tables, breakfast table talks, etc. I always find interesting and exciting because that's where you get the really good stuff, particularly after maybe an hour or so at the bar, where people are like, okay, they've shaken off their nervousness and stuff like that. They're standing in your personal space, breathing on you. Then the really interesting questions start coming out.
Well, I am definitely not excited for the invasion of my personal space. I should probably just get like a hula hoop and attach it to my waist, and so people can if they can get past the hula hoop, they've gone too far.
The alarm goes off.
Exactly. You should wear one of these masks. These keep people away. You'd be surprised.
I have my own set of masks. Thank you. All right. So let's get into let's talk about how to get value out of a conference. So Chris, I apologize I interrupted you, but you had started to go down that road.
One of the things that one of my martial arts teachers taught us years ago was for any kind of professional development event, conference event, seminar, whatever, go into it with a burning question. Go into it with a question that you need an answer to so that you can ask as many people about it as possible. My burning question that I want to know from people at Marketing Profs B2B Forum, and in general, is how are you currently doing? If you are, how are you currently doing marketing mix modeling? Because I have some thoughts about this. This is something that I want to develop for Trust Insights and our customers next year. And there's a lot of different solutions, but I want to get a sense of, if I ask people that question, they're like, huh? Then okay, wow, it's going to be a while before this idea becomes mainstream. Maybe that's something I need to write a book about to introduce the idea. Or if everybody's like, oh yeah, we've been doing that for years and this is how we do it. Okay, great. How can I improve on it then? But know that there's a need for it in the market. So that's the number one thing I do to get value out of a conference, is go in with a burning question so that I have an understanding of, if I get this question answered from peers and other experts, I will have gotten value out of this conference.
What about you, John?
Yeah, there's three areas usually where that will end up drawing me out to a show. One is if the attendees are the profile of your customer, like that's the easy one. If a bunch of your customers are going to be at a show, you can go there. The other one that happens a lot more than you'd think is events where it draws out enough crowd that it makes it the right networking opportunity. Like you may not even care about any of the sessions, but the fact that you can talk to a list of 15 people all over 3 days, that's actually going to save you, 5 weeks of travel throughout the rest of the year. So there's some things that you go to just because of the networking and the audience that's there. And then in a rare occasion, you get in some industries, there's just events that you can't miss. If you have anything to do with entertainment now, you're going to go to Comic-Con because that's just what you do. And, there's shows like that are on the list. So if it's any of those three, that's enough to get me out the door. And for us, pretty much it's always, now it has become the second one, I think. And we can talk about this too. It's interesting when you look at the agendas for some of these sessions. Some of these shows now, I'm going to go because everybody's there, but I look at the agenda, I'm like, oh my God, no, I'm not going to spend 5 minutes in any of these things. Like this is the worst, bunch of vendor pitches I've ever seen in my life. But yeah, it ultimately just comes down to it's a chance to get in-person FaceTime, to talk to people, ask them questions and get real-time feedback, not, trying to read an email and figure out what you think they meant by that.
Come on, John, you don't want to 5x your pipeline with the secrets of account-based marketing.
10x, come on, 10x. We're turning it up, crush it, man.
I mean, if you tell me it could be 12x, then maybe I'll do
right. You and your puny 10x. Step aside.
What about you, Katie? What are you looking forward to? What do you look to get stuff out of events?
I'm looking forward to seeing a bunch of my friends. So that'll be fun. That aside, when I go into an event, I don't have a specific question in mind, but my agenda is to just sort of sit back and listen to how people are approaching their marketing in general, and what are things that I maybe hadn't thought of, or what are questions that people are struggling with. And so one of the things that we feel is happening right now is that a lot of it is back to basics, because a lot of people have switched careers, or their teams have turned over, or whatever the reason. And so what I'm going to be looking for and listening for are those topics that people are consistently talking about having trouble communicating. And so a lot of what the sessions are about are, here's how to do this thing, or here's this idea. And so to me, I find that interesting of, well, why this topic? And did it resonate with the audience? And is there something that we can do with that information? How can we put our own spin on it, or how can we partner with whoever gave the talk to enhance it? So those are the kinds of things that I look for when I go. So I go in with the agenda of, I'm pretty much wide open, but I'm constantly data collecting, constantly thinking about, what does this mean for Trust Insights? What does this mean for me personally? What haven't I been thinking about, or is there a new way to think about the same idea?
Yep.
And I think that's, as we think about, if you're going to a conference for the first time, or if it's been a while, or even if you go to conferences all the time, Chris, this is something that you and I talk about a lot is, what are speakers bringing to the table? And is it a new innovative idea? Is it a new spin on the same idea? Or is it just the same idea, and maybe they want you to just sort of like think about it a little to the left so that you can maybe do something practical with it? So in terms of setting your expectations, I think that, to Chris's point originally, is go in with a question. And then that way you're not just looking for the latest and greatest shiny object, because those are going to be everywhere. The vendors are going to be pushing what they call new things on you. People say they have new ideas. You may not necessarily need new ideas. You may need new spins on current ideas.
It's funny you say that, because for a lot of events that I go to that might have value, I'm specifically looking for the stuff that isn't ready for the stage. So, one of the worst kept secrets in the conference industry, particularly the marketing industry, is that what's on stage is a year old, right? Because it's had time to become a talk, to become a book, to become a thought leadership platform, and it's not new. There's sessions on account-based marketing and stuff like, yeah, we've been doing that since 2015, but like at Content Marketing World, I was sitting down at one of the gatherings with a friend of ours and just talking about what he's working on. And he's like, yeah, behind the scenes, this is what's going on right now. He's like, I got advance notice of this, and I'm telling you this is what's going to happen in 6 months. Here's what you should be doing. He's like, we're not ready to put this on, we're not going to tell anybody this except our friends and our clients. And I'm like, taking notes is furious. Like, okay, so I need to know that. And talking about like the different ideas. So we got to a long discussion about the difference between diffusers and transformers, AI technology, and how we could see this stuff being applied. And for me, that's where I get the most value out of an event, is the hallway conversations, the stuff that's not on stage, the stuff that isn't ready for the stage. Because it's like some of the stuff I was working on this morning for some of our clients. It's not ready for prime time, right? It's still janky. It's still got some bugs. It's cool. And, if you catch me at the right time at Marketing Profs, for example, I'd be like, yeah, here's what I'm working on, right now. But is it stage ready for a talk? No. But is there value in it? Yes, because that's what's going on right now. And I think if folks wanted to really optimize what they can get out of a conference, I hate calling it networking, and we're going to rant about this on the podcast one of these days. But build those professional friendships with people so that, yeah, you can grab coffee or, hotel chicken or beers with your professional friends and say, like, yeah, this is what are you working on? What's going on behind the scenes at your place?
Well, until we come up with a better name for it, let's call it networking. So the next question that we wanted to tackle was navigating networking at events. And so the first non-clinical event that I went to was actually with you, Chris. When I joined you at the old agency, it was actually Marketing Profs was my first commercial event, for lack of a better term. Non-academic, I guess is the best way to put it. And it was very overwhelming to me. And basically, I just trailed behind you because I didn't know anybody. I barely had an idea of what was going on, what to expect. It was like no event I'd ever been to, and it wasn't even really the biggest, event we've been to since then, but it was like sensory overload for me. And, as someone, I was lucky to have you sort of guiding me through it because you knew so many of the people at the event already. But what advice would both of you give to someone who's maybe doesn't have the benefit of traveling with someone who knows all the players already? Like, how do they navigate networking without it just sort of being like, here's my business card, then you come home with a pile of cards that you never look at again? So, John, this is really kind of your jam. So I'll turn it to you first.
Yeah, it pays to be strategic. Look at the attendee list. Like if you're just coming in green and you don't know anybody, try on social media to find somebody to pal up with who has been to the show, who can tell you kind of where to go and what to do. Because for every show, there's all kinds of things like, oh, you don't go to this thing this evening, and whatever you do, don't go on the boat cruises. Oh my God. If you want to lose 5 hours of your life, you're never going to get back. Don't go on the boat cruise. So, there's stuff like that, but yeah, try and have a plan. And it's super tough if it's your first year at an event, but once you've got your feet wet and you understand what you're getting into, the goal is that you've already got all your appointments set up and your meetings and it doesn't have to be hard times. It can just be, hey, here's 4 people that I want to meet. And I've said to them, hey, I'm going to be on site. Let's talk at some point. Because yeah, in a perfect world, you've got all the things that you want to accomplish written down. So you have a plan as you go in there, because you can go in and just start going to the mixers and on the show floor to talk to vendors and randomly talk to people. And you might have some great conversations, but if you at least have your pump primed with like, okay, here's 3 people that I want to get to talk to and find out what they've got going on. And even an easy hack with that is look at the agenda and pick 1 or 2 speakers that you'd really like to, talk to and learn more about. Figure out what they're going to talk about. If they've got a book, go ahead and buy it and bring a copy of it to get signed. And, don't be afraid after somebody's session to go up to them and say, hey, I like your work. Like, what's going on? Because that can at least give you it can be a great conversation starter. And when you talk to someone at the end of the session, the other 5 or 6 people that are around you, these are your tribe. These are people that are interested in the same stuff and the same speaker. So that's another great place to, if it's a late session in the day and you're waiting to talk to the speaker, you can ask the other folks around you, hey, where are you guys going for dinner? What are you guys doing for drinks? You can find out what's happening and get to know some folks, which is really what you can't get, that doesn't happen in virtual.
The thing I do, particularly in an event where I don't know anybody, and maybe it's it's not some place where I'm known, is at the first opportunity for like a meal break or coffee break or whatever, you look for people who are presenting friendly body language, right? So maybe they're sitting at a table by themselves, but they're looking around looking for somebody else to join them. And you sit on the other side of the table, don't get right next to them, don't get in their business. And just introduce yourself and say, hey, if it's at the start of the event, hey, what are you looking forward to learning at the event, or who you're looking forward to see speak. If it's in the middle or to the end of it, ask them, hey, what have you learned so far that you really liked? What have you enjoyed? And I find that is a great way to build that sort of impromptu network of somebody like, hey, these are people that are interested in the same things. We're all here for the same reason. Right? We're all here for, it's not like this person accidentally stumbled in from like the home gardening show. I mean, maybe they did, but we want those people we can find people to become our tribe at an event very, very quickly. Now, I will advise, be really aware, be really in tune, because some people just don't want you to talk to them, and respect that, honor that. Say like, yeah, cool. It's been nice meeting you. Have a great show. But if they decide to engage in conversation and stuff, you may find, some pretty cool professional friendships that way. I found a number of folks over the years that way, that it was like, okay, this is a person I'll stay in touch with that, has useful insights and things that, let's learn more together.
I think that makes sense. I would add, Chris, to that, if you're sitting down with someone you never met, another super easy place to start is, hey, what's your name? What do you do? What kind of marketing are you in? Tell me more about it, and give the other person the opportunity to either open up to you or not. And to your point, Chris, pay attention to those cues. I'm awful at networking because I am such an introvert. There is a reason why I used to be confused for a mute in high school, because I can just sit there and not say anything for hours, believe it or not. But in a public forum, I will just sort of sit back, take a back seat, and just sort of take it all in. And so I'm the person who, if you sat down at a table across from me and tried to engage me in conversation, I would struggle with it. I wouldn't necessarily open up, not because I'm trying to be rude or I don't want to talk. It's just not something that I'm good at. And so for me, I really do rely on the both of you to do the majority of the networking. Like, once I sort of warm up into a situation, I can open up to people. I can talk to more random people, especially if they're approaching me after a talk or something like that. But I'm not great at initiating that conversation. And I think that for those folks who are going into an event that are sort of in the same boat as me, that's okay. I think a great place to find people to talk to are like, so one of the things that Marketing Profs is doing is the breakfast roundtables. And they did that when we were in San Francisco, and those were really successful. What they do, a lot of events do this, is basically during meal times, they'll have pre-chosen speakers or experts to sit at different tables with a specific topic in mind. And Chris, 10 times out of 10, you cover something about analytics. And so if I was going in cold and I didn't know anybody, I would probably pop by your table, introduce myself, and be like, I'm interested in analytics. I have some questions, but I don't know what they are right now. Can I grab your card and maybe follow up with you at another time? So that way I don't feel the pressure to immediately engage in conversation. Maybe I'm more comfortable behind the scenes over email or something like that, but ask the other person, like, is that okay? And that's just another form of networking. The other piece of advice, and so John's saying, don't get on the booze cruise. Like, it's really a waste of time, to be quite honest. And I appreciate that these events are trying to put together like the fun after hours things, because a lot of times people are stuck in a city that they've never been in and don't know where to go. So the events are just trying to create a safe space for people to sort of stay contained so they can, like the mother hen, keep track of all their little chickens. Just a word of caution on those after hours events, there does tend to be a lot of alcohol flowing. And if that's not your jam, that's okay. If it is your jam, proceed with caution because you're in a strange city with strange people. That's just my mother hen PSA.
It's very valid. I mean, I was reading a book this past week, an upcoming book on events, and the event organizer was writing about this and saying, yeah, like at one of our events in the past, we had to eject several people from the event because of sexual harassment issues and stuff. So it is a very real problem. And it's, again, one of those things where I say be very cautious when how you approach people, particularly if you are someone who is perceived as threatening to somebody else. Make sure that you are super aware of people's verbal and nonverbal cues. I mean, it's the last thing you want to do in any context, but especially in a professional context where you're not only representing yourself, you're representing your company and brand, is to make someone feel threatened.
It's true. And, with that, these events are safe events. Marketing Profs is a very safe event. The coordinators, the whole team, they spend a lot of time and energy making sure that all of the attendees and the speakers are in safe environments, that they have people who they can reach out to if they suddenly don't feel safe. One of the tips that I would say for you, and events are really good at identifying these people through like shirts or whatever, is make sure you know who the event staff are so that you can ask them if you have a question or a problem or, God forbid, need to report something. But it happens.
No, I mean, even attendees can just help out as well. At Content Marketing World this past time, I was at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for the party, and there was a person sort of just standing tentatively at the gate, on the way out. And I said, "Are you okay?" And they said, "I'm not comfortable walking back to my hotel." And I said, "I'll go with you." And they were very grateful to have, just because they didn't know Cleveland, and there are parts of Cleveland,
any city, to be fair.
Any city, yeah.
Yeah,
but we got the person back to their hotel safely, and so everyone, if you have the opportunity to help out, and there's someone who has a need, offer to help out. Whether or not it turns into business, it's just being a decent human being.
Well, and I think that that's a really good pro tip. If you are someone who's comfortable doing so, if you're a bit of an extrovert, or if you're just looking for new ways to meet people at events, you can reach out to the event ahead of time and say, "Hey, do you have anything you need help with? I'm happy to volunteer, maybe set up a room." And then you get to know the event staff who typically work at other companies. It's a really good way to start to get involved. And it's an easy way to meet people because you're there, you showed up. I mean, I think Chris, a few years back when we went to Marketing Profs, I think we were there early because of our flights, and they immediately put us to work, and we were, helping stuff bags and, put things out. But I didn't know anybody, and it was helpful for me to get to know people in that specific context.
Yep.
John, do you consider yourself an introvert or an extrovert?
Yeah, no, I'm score high on the extrovert scale. I mean, not a full 20, but definitely in the 10 side of things. Yeah, and one thing with that too, on personal safety, keep your badge off when you're outside the venue. When you leave the conference and you're out on the city streets, the badge is basically saying, "Please rob me." You have to.
I wear it just for that reason. Like, come on.
So to sort of get through the contradicting point of views,
follow John's advice.
It's follow John's advice. The point being is inside the event space, insurance reasons, liability, inside the event space, the coordinators of the event, that's where they can protect you. Once you step outside of that space, it's sort of out of their hands. Like, they'll do their best, but to John's point, like, you're basically walking down the street with a billboard saying, "I'm not from here. This is my first and last name. This is where I'm staying. This is where I'm going." And so, just use your common sense. Like, if you're comfortable with those things, if you're Chris and you're probably carrying 8,000 different hidden weapons on you, you're probably fine. But if you are myself, someone like me who probably looks like an easy target, then proceed with caution.
Yeah,
I can see Chris
these events
debating this in his mind of whether or not I look like an easy target.
scoring it is a danger assessment. Yeah, I mean, these events are totally made for extroverts. There's no doubt about that. You know, I mean, it's just all social hour, and I be mindful of that with speakers too. That's another thing. There's a lot of folks that, yeah, I see this with keynotes where people just presume that because they're a keynote and they love to talk, that they want to now go out and spend 3 hours hitting the bars with everybody. Like, that is not the case. There's many a speaker that will leave and go to their hotel room so that no one can talk to them for another 3 hours. Yeah, because that's, again, just because somebody's up on stage and is telling a story, that doesn't mean that stories are their thing.
That's true.
And they don't want to hear about your family. That's for damn sure.
Well, and I think this is sort of the other side of it. So, I can only give myself as an example. I do get on stage. I do talk to people. I do talk on these shows, as part of the job. If you're excited to see someone that you've been like following or haven't met before, definitely probably don't just walk up to them and start talking to them, because they may or may not know who you are. This happened to me a couple years back at a show. I mean, it wasn't like an unsafe thing, but a gentleman approached me. He said, "Oh my God, you're Katie. I can't wait to see your talk." And as someone who's super introverted, I was like, how the hell do you know who I am? Where did you get my information? What are you doing here? Like, it caught me off guard because it's not a situation I'm used to. And so definitely, there's time and place to make yourself known to people that you want to meet. And this was sort of, John, what you were talking about earlier is, you can make your short list. You can reach out to people ahead of, the conference and the event. You find them on social media, follow them, and that way you're not just like, surprise, here I am. I wanted to meet you forever. It gets a little, not everyone's okay with that kind of approach. I'm personally not okay with it.
The dividing line, and this is a line I find very helpful between introvert and extrovert, is whether being around people recharges you. Like if you recharge from the fun of being around people, you are an extrovert. Even if you're not necessarily loud, if you just enjoy being in the crowd, you are an extrovert. If, on the other hand, it takes energy from you and it doesn't refill you, you're an introvert. You're like, because to John's point, there are people who, yeah, they can be in a crowd, they can get on stage and stuff, but at the end of the day, they're like, I have got to get 20 minutes of silence and darkness and just hide because your social battery is at zero. It's flashing red.
So I think we have two extroverts and an introvert.
I'm an ambivert. It depends on the day.
Well, no, you just said there's a dividing line. You don't then get to make up a different rule, Chris.
Really? No, because Chris, I would say, do you actually feel drained? I think by the end of the day, you're tired.
It depends on the event and the crowd and why I'm there, right? So marketing events, typically, yes, because I'm sharing a lot, but I'm not necessarily getting a lot back. When I go to like a data science or an AI event, I'm the other way around. I'm like, and by the end of the day, I'm like, I've got all these ideas and there's all these people I want to talk to. And there's all this stuff that I need to know that that the whole reason I'm there is to say, okay, can somebody look at my code and tell me what I'm doing wrong here? One of my favorite examples was at IBM Think back in 2016. I showed up at the data science expert station. I brought up my laptop and I sat with one of IBM's PhDs in data science. And I said, tell me what I'm doing wrong here. And the guy goes, oh, like pretty much everything. Like that's the wrong model to use. You're not even using the right classification technique. So where'd you learn this? And make sure you never pay them any more money. I'm like, thank you. That's that. So for me, part of the purpose of an event, and we can even talk about the 5 Ps when it comes to events, but part of the purpose for me is getting knowledge out of the event that I can then go and use. And the more of that I get, the more excited I am for the event and the more fun it is for me. If it's like, and now we're going to talk about how to get more followers on Twitter, it's like,
Katie's not buying it.
Nope.
Well, neither am I. That's the thing. It's like an event like that where if it's all how to get more followers on Twitter and why you should be doing email marketing, you're like, okay, probably at least the event content's not going to be super helpful to me. There might be like one or two little things, but to kind of what you were saying earlier, John, it's not worth spending 45 minutes for like one little thing in a session. I'd rather talk to people in the halls. Right,
but that still makes you an extrovert. Just because you don't find the content fun. Like I feel like you've sort of veered off the definitions, but regardless, you know,
Here we
having
are.
that bit of self-awareness about sort of the time and space that you need when you go into an event is going to help you not get exhausted. And so the last topic we wanted to cover is after actions. So it's great, it's good. Go to an event, do the networking, get what you can out of the, sessions, talk to people, go to the dinners, whatever it is. But then you go home, and then what? And I think that that's the piece of the puzzle that's often missed is the so what after an event. So like you have this pile of notes that you've taken from every session. You're so excited about all the things you've learned. You're, super stoked about all the cool people that you've just met. But then what? What do you do? So, Chris, what's some advice that you could give to someone of how to make the most out of what they learned or who they met at an event, like 1 to 3 weeks post event?
In the first couple days, ideally, if you could do this, if you're traveling, do it on the way home. Is write down not just what happened, but your thoughts, because that stuff goes away really fast.
Mhm.
At Content Marketing World, on my drive home, because I had a 10-hour drive back, I recorded like 3.5 hours of my thoughts and notes from the event as I was driving back. And I look back on it now, like, oh yeah, that's right, that did happen. And I find that super helpful. There's an app that we recommend. It's called Otter. If you go to trustinsights.ai/Otter, OTTER, it's an AI-based app where you just voice record into it, and then it transcribes it. And I find that super helpful right after an event. Just stream of consciousness, get everything out of your brain, because part of the excitement of a in-person event is getting you out of your day-to-day. It gets you out of your office, out of your chair, and your brain's going to think different. The moment you sit back down in that chair, everything sort of reattaches. So that's number one. Number two is, at the very least, if you've met at least one person that you would consider now a professional friend, meaning that there's professional interests that overlap, work out mentally yourself a schedule for staying in touch with them. Maybe you drop them a line once a month on LinkedIn. Maybe you tweet at them. Maybe you just shoot them an email once a month. But build a habit of staying in touch, because again, at these events, you may walk away with 300 or 400 people you've met at a time, and you're not going to remember them all. So pick ideally at least one person that, like, yeah, this was somebody who we seemed to be mutually valuable to each other in a professional context. Let's stay in touch. For example, a number of years ago, we met our friend Jeff Coyle over at Market News, and he's somebody I try and stay in touch with on a regular and frequent basis. Not to take his money or to give him our money, but just like, okay, you know a lot of stuff, you see a lot of stuff in the industry, so do I. Let's keep trading notes. So those are my two things: write down stuff before it goes away, because it goes away fast, and pick one person to stay in touch with, at least one person to stay in touch with, and set up a cadence for yourself. Whether or not the person reciprocates, set up a cadence for yourself to stay in touch.
What about you, John?
Yeah, the big so what is really never until 10 months later. You're looking at the next event that's coming back, and like, are you actually going to go and give up your time and money to do it? And that's when you're going to look back and say, oh yeah, actually I've met 5 people, or maybe you don't even think about it. You're like, hey, this is my chance to go hang out with my friends. And so I've managed to clone here. This is perfect. We have dual John.
Yeah. Someone in a sales role, how much do you look at whether the event helped from a sales perspective?
Yeah, well, that's the attribution model, right? I mean, you should know which leads came in from the show and which ones you followed up with, and keep good records of that. That's an interesting point. Like in HubSpot, I do have a source code that I'll throw in there for everybody that I know that's going to a show. So even if they came in from some other thing, I can still look at the show and be like, oh yeah, okay, we had these 7 people that came from other places, but they all think that this is the right show for them to be going to, and they go to the show. So you will know that, okay, yeah, just because we didn't close any deals, specifically from that, we do know that, there's an 80% chance that the people there are the people like that would buy from us, and that we should be there. So, and you really crushed it though. The big thing is like, you have to do it. In fact, even more often than on the ride home, I even sit down at night, like before I cash out for the day, make a note on the business cards that you've got, or just put it all into a Google Doc so you've got it. But take notes on like, this session was good, this session was bad, here's the people I met, here's a couple things. Because yeah, it's amazing. You won't realize how you'll and it's so funny too. I don't even know if business cards are a thing like they were before the pandemic. I don't know if they're going to be a thing after the pandemic, but you can have a stack of 20 business cards, and the day you get back home, like half of them, you're going to be like, where did I meet this person? What did I ask? Like, you won't even know. So as soon as you get the card, if you even just put a few words like interested in this, or does, this podcast or whatever, that kind of stuff will serve you well in the long run. And then, sending email is kind of a total mess. All the exhibitors spam for the next 2 weeks, so it's hell. But don't be afraid to link up to people on LinkedIn. Just say, hey, met you at the show. It was great to meet you. Let's connect here on LinkedIn. So now you've got that. And, later on you can follow up, and again, tag it for next year and say, hey, you're going back this year.
LinkedIn is definitely the way to go for that, because it does allow you to stay in touch in a way that's going to be less noisy than the inbox and stuff. Particularly if you, don't avoid doing it in the mobile app if you can. If you can do it on a desktop, do it there, because you can then customize the note that goes along with the invitation. It's a little harder to do that in mobile app, but you can say like, hey, great meeting you at MPB2B, and then that way that person who also met 300 people is like, oh yeah, okay, well, at least I know why you're talking to me. One thing I do with the business cards is I will, again, fire up a voice recorder, read the name out, and then audio to type out my notes that way. Again, it's just so that I can spend a little more time and not have to like write in 2-point font like who this person was. At Inbound and at Content Marketing World, I did not see a ton of people trading business cards, but I did see a lot of people exchanging data on phones, like, let's connect on LinkedIn and stuff. So if your LinkedIn profile is not up to date, now would be the time to do it before you go to the event, so that it reflects who you want to be seen as.
I think that's a really good piece of advice too, especially if you're just sort of getting into the industry, or if you're looking to make a move in the industry. Make sure that your LinkedIn profile and your Twitter bio, that you have a presence on social media, even if it's a small presence, but that your bio is up to date. It's a handle that you're comfortable using, whatever the thing is, because that really is the new business card. What's your handle on Twitter? Where can I find you on LinkedIn? And if someone shows up to look for you and you're either not there, or things are, out of date or just not complete, you've missed the opportunity to hold on to that connection that you worked really hard to make in the first place. So that is a really good piece of advice. A million years ago, I used to work with a man who, when I traveled with him, he would do that exact thing. And I always, was just amazed by his ability he would take the business card and immediately start scribbling notes on it. And then when we got back to the office, a few days later, he would spend, a few days updating all of his contacts and making sure that every little note that he took about that person was in his computer, in his contacts, make sure that there was, a full story for each one. And then he would take the time to write those personal notes and emails to follow up with some, oh, John, it was so great talking with you about, the podcast that you've been running for 15 years. And I'm really excited to learn more from you. And so he would go into details of the conversation that they had to show that he was listening. And he was just really great at making and keeping those connections, because he took the time to give that personal touch. Now, the flip side of that, he was also the person who would spend the time to fill out all of these surveys after an event to give them feedback on what he felt they could do better. And a big part of that was, can you make the person first name bigger? Because a lot of times, like, the company is the biggest thing, or, whatever it is, but it's hard to read someone's first name. And depending on what the person is wearing, they may be showing the badge in a different place. And so you're kind of squinting, staring at someone's, chest or someone's leg or something. You're like, what is going on? And you're like, I'm just trying to read your name. I just want to know what your name is. And so, if that's the case, if you get a badge and you feel like your name is too small, then just get one of those "Hello, my name is" and write it really big. So that way you feel like people can just approach you.
Exactly. A couple other things that make it easy to network at events and then do stuff afterwards. Number one, make sure you carry a lot of cables. Right. So this is one of my favorites, is USB cable with the 3 different things. Everybody at some point, in their trade show life is like, oh, crap, I didn't charge my phone. Does anyone have a cable for X? And you can be the person who says, hey, I'm Chris, and here's my cable. Give it back to me. You're done. portable power strips. You will be the best friend at the table if you have a power strip that can spread the the one outlet that's in the breakout room. The other thing that at the event and after that we started doing recently, actually at Katie's suggestion, which has been a lot of fun, is recording a lot of media at events, even if it's just your own thoughts, just recording short reels or videos or whatever. You might want to invest in like a little handheld stabilizer for your phone, or if you have one of the newer phones that has the automatic stabilization, record and create content if you're comfortable doing so, because it does a couple things. One, helps you remember stuff. Two, it's content that you can then go remarket with, right? You can, if you go to the Trust Insights YouTube channel, you can see some of the travel stuff that we've talked about in the past. And three, if you get a chance, particularly if you talk to other people, you then can network with them and have a reason for reaching out with it to them. Say like, hey, we met at Marketing Profs, and the 5-minute interview that we shot, I'm just about to post it on YouTube. I figured I'd tag you and see if maybe you want to do a follow-up, maybe you want a webinar or something like that. To do that, at a very least, you need a decent camera. Your mobile phone is probably good enough. You may want to invest in some, wireless microphones and things. I'll be bringing these along with me to Marketing Profs. There's a couple of folks that I want to see if I can grab 10 minutes with them just to get their thoughts. But it's kind of like the marathon tip that you still do. One of the things I do every year is I stand on the 6 mile mark at the Boston Marathon. Now I just shoot video instead of photos because the videos are 4K videos, which is great. And then every runner that goes by that has gray hair, I take a still frame, find their bib number, look them up on LinkedIn and say, here's a photo I shot of you at mile 6. Type A personalities who run marathons and have gray hair tend to be executives at companies. And so it's been a great way to build a network by doing somebody else a favor. So all of these things are things you can do at the event and then follow up after the event and keep those connections strong.
I think the other thing that we haven't talked about, we could talk about conferences, forever in terms of pro tips, is if you're sitting in a session or if you're having a conversation with someone and they say something that really resonates with you, don't be shy about, sharing that quote on social media, but also make sure that you're giving them credit, just had a great conversation with Chris Penn. Here are some of the tips that he gave me, and then tag him in it. And so that's a really great way, again, to sort of show I was paying attention. I was listening. What you said was meaningful to me, and now I want to share it with other people, because chances are that person also has an audience that you may feel that you can start to connect with, and you can build that community.
Yep. The last caution, particularly for events where you're going with a team of people from your company, is make sure you spread out. Make sure that you're not all in the same sessions. You're not all hanging out with the same people. Use the opportunity to build those professional friendships with other people, particularly people that it might not be in your ideal audience. So like the three of us are going to Marketing Profs. John, obviously in his role at the company, really is charged with looking for decision makers and folks who could engage Trust Insights for business. Katie, as a senior executive, is going, ideally is going to get a chance to chat with other senior executives, other CEOs, other people who she might be able to talk to in a non-sales capacity, to say like, I just want to do this. I'm going to try and find more nerds. Folks like Jeff and Andy Crestadina and folks, and just sit down and say, okay, well, what are you guys working on? Again, not in a sales capacity, just in I want to hear what you're working on. I'll tell you what I'm working on. And maybe there's some cool stuff that we can collaborate on, particularly if you are a creator, you're a content creator, you want to be looking at people that you can create new content with that might not be your usual crowd. Part of the joy of events is it's not necessarily the usual crowd that you hang out with every day. So use that opportunity to branch out.
The thing I'm not looking forward to the most is all the spammy emails I'm going to get post-event. All the lists that I'm magically suddenly going to appear on that I didn't sign up for. And so I think sort of the flip side of that is, if you are looking to network or make a meaningful connection or whatever the case may be, then definitely proceed with caution with just adding people to your mailing list, reaching out to them unsolicited, because you will immediately get thrown into the trash. Like, I'm probably just going to spend 4 days deleting emails and not even reading them personally.
I recorded a YouTube video the other day because they always get that email. Hey, do you have time for a quick call? Right? You get all those emails from all the vendors, and I just have a pre-recorded 5-minute video of me pretending to be on a quick call with it. I just say my lines and like, here's your quick call. Bye.
But see, I won't even get to the point of reading the email to see that that's what they want.
Oh,
I don't even bother opening it. So yeah, just proceed with caution. People are going to throw you into spam if you don't sort of approach them the right way. John, anything you're not looking forward to?
Not looking. Well, it's just the hassle, right? It's both the blessing and the curse. It's the fact that, we can't do these virtual events because the office always sucks you in. And so this is your chance to finally leave the office. So you're going to get to go do cool stuff by going somewhere. But yeah, so now this means you're going to have to deal with airplanes and trains and automobiles and, maybe bad food and a bunch of craziness. So it's a hassle, but it's definitely worth doing. One thing, post business card world, if you use a pop socket, I have one with my virtual card on there. So that way I don't have to carry cards around. I can just say, here, throw your camera at this, and they get my business card, and I don't have to carry any paper around, which is cool. So that's something to try if you're, and in fact, I'll put a link up for that, because to get the QR code to work, there's some stuff you have to go through, but it's definitely worth doing.
Well, and I think that that's a really good, especially for sort of this modern day and age, if you have the opportunity to turn your contact information into a QR code, that's not a terrible idea. People will have their phones with them. They will be attached to them. Give them something to scan, or, have your contact information in such a way that you can say, here, just take a picture of it. It's a smart way
I should make a YouTube video with all my contact information in the description. Say like, hey, you met me at this event. That's a good idea, John.
The video.
You could also just have like a still image of you.
I could, but I'm going to do a YouTube video.
All right. Well, I don't like.
That's a great idea.
I'm glad I gave it to you. All right. Well, as we said, next week there is no live stream because the three of us will be live in person at Marketing Profs B2B in Boston. Very excited. We will all have an opportunity to debut our Trust Insights swag. If the gentlemen care to do so, I'll be wearing it so that I don't have to make decisions about what I'm wearing. Any other parting thoughts for people who are attending conferences and how they can get the most out of a conference?
3 weeks before the event, make sure you get your booster if you're eligible for it, and please wear a mask.
Yeah, 2-drink limit on site.
All right, I think that's it for this week.
Thanks, everyone. We'll talk to you next week. Thanks for watching today. Be sure to subscribe to our show wherever you're watching it. For more resources and to learn more, check out the Trust Insights podcast at trustinsights.ai/TI podcast and a weekly email newsletter at trustinsights.ai/newsletter. Got questions about what you saw in today's episode? Join our free Analytics for Marketers Slack group at trustinsights.ai/analytics for marketers. See you next time.